Welcome to the deep dive. So, Singapore's GE2025 is done, but one debate is really bubbling up again.
You mean the GRC system, group representation constituencies?
Exactly. Why do we have them when often the MPs inside a GRC seem to handle their own specific areas, almost like they're running their own little SMCs?
It's a really common observation, and yeah, it gained a lot of traction online recently. There was this quite popular Reddit thread, I think May 6th.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
Right. And it used Marsiling UT GRC as a prime example. You know, you've got Lawrence Wong looking after Limbang, Alex Yam over in UT.
Haney So and Woodgrove, Zaki Mohammed and Marsiling, each with their own zone.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the user was asking essentially, if they each manage a distinct area, what's the fundamental point of grouping them together in a GRC? What purpose does that structure serve?
It's a fair question. Okay, so let's tackle the official reason first. Why were GRCs created?
Well, the government line, established way back in 1988, is pretty clear.
It's about minority representation in Parliament, right?
That's it. The core rule. Every GRC team must include at least one candidate from a minority race. That's the foundational argument for the system.
And, you can argue it's probably contributed to having a more racially diverse Parliament over the years.
Absolutely. That's a hard point to ignore. But that Reddit thread and just the general buzz around it suggests people think there might be, well, other factors at play. Less official reasons, maybe?
Right, and this is where the speculation really comes in. A very common theory, and it was definitely voiced in that thread, is that the GRC system gives the ruling party, the PAP, a bit of an edge.
How so? What's the thinking there?
The idea is it allows newer PP candidates, maybe folks who aren't household names yet, to get into Parliament more easily.
By being on the same team, the same slate, as a really well-known minister or political heavyweight.
Exactly. The Reddit post kind of compared it to like an anchor minister carrying the team. That analogy seemed to resonate with people.
It's an interesting perspective. And it contrasts quite sharply with single-member constituencies, the SMCs.
Because in an SMC, it's just one-on-one.
Right. It's candidate versus candidate. You win or lose more directly on your own individual appeal and merit, you could say.
Yeah.
There's no team effect pulling you along.
So the argument follows that maybe, just maybe, GRCs can sometimes lessen the pressure on individual candidates compared to those intense SMC battles.
That's the theory, yeah. Now, the whole electoral map itself has been changing, too.
Yeah, we've seen growth. I was looking at the numbers. From 2011 to 2025, GRCs went from 11 up to 15.
And SMCs also increased from 12 to 15.
So more MPs overall to cover a bigger electorate, over 2.75 million voters now. But just having more seats doesn't really resolve this core debate about the type of constituency, does it?
Not at all. It just scales the existing system. And think about the opposition parties, like the Workers' Party.
They've had significant wins historically in the Hugang SMC and, of course, famously taking Aljunied GRC.
Exactly. Which leads to that hypothetical question.
Yeah.
If Singapore only had SMCs, would we see more opposition wins? Would smaller parties have a better shot if every contest was purely individual?
It's impossible to know for sure, but it's a key part of the debate. But then you flip the coin. If you got rid of GRCs entirely,
Then you hit the big counter-argument, the main official justification.
minority representation. That's the major concern, isn't it? That without the GRC rule forcing minority inclusion on teams.
You might risk voters, perhaps unconsciously or consciously, voting along racial lines in an all-SMC system.
And potentially ending up with a parliament that's less diverse, less reflective of Singapore's multiracial makeup.
That is the fundamental tension here, you see. It's a real trade-off. On one side, you have this push for what some see as maybe pure political competition, more direct accountability in SMCs.
Then on the other side,
The absolute need, or at least the stated need, to guarantee minority voices are present in Parliament, which the GRC system is designed to do.
So it boils down to asking, is the debate truly about the fairest way to run elections, or is it tangled up with whether the system gives one party a structural advantage, or perhaps both?
It's complex. There really isn't a simple yes or no answer to whether Singapore should scrap GRCs and go all in on SMCs.
Yeah, you're weighing some pretty heavy fundamental things against each other.
Definitely. You're balancing that potential for a more wide-open, maybe more competitive political landscape that an all-SMC system might foster.
Against the risk, the very real worry for many, of losing that guaranteed minority representation that GRCs provide.
It's a significant dilemma for any multiracial society structuring its democracy.
So maybe the thing to leave you, the listener, with is this. think about how the structure itself, team-based GRCs versus individual SMCs, might influence things.
Like not just who wins, but the kind of political contest we have and ultimately how diverse our parliament is.
And consider how, if the system were different, totally SMC-based perhaps, how might that change the way you think about your own vote? Something to mull over.
Definitely food for thought.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.